Okay, so let's set the scene. It's January 4th, 2012, and we are deep in the, let's just call it the gutter of the internet.
4chan.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
physically the random board, B. And if you've never been there, just picture total chaos. It's the last place you'd ever expect to find sophistication.
It's pure noise. But this was different. This was a pattern interrupt. In an ecosystem of just loud memes and shock value, this thing was silent.
A single image appears. It's stark. Black background, minimalist white text. It doesn't scream, but it just commands your attention.
And it read, verbatim, "Hello, we're looking for highly intelligent individuals."
To find them, we have devised a test. There is a message hidden in this image. Find it, and it will lead you on the road to finding us.
And it ends with, "We look forward to meeting the few that will make it all the way through. Good luck." Just 4 digits. 3301.
And just like that, the rabbit hole opens. But let's be really clear before we open Dossier #31. This was not a game.
No, and it wasn't a marketing stunt for a movie, which was the big theory at the time. It wasn't asking for money. It offered zero fame.
No. It asked for one thing: capacity.
Exactly. This was a recruitment drive, a global filter designed to sift through billions of people and find, I don't know, the 0.01%. This is a story about intellectual Darwinism.
Today on the deep dive, we are opening the file on the silent dossier, profiling the phantom entity known as Cicada 3301. We're not just going to list puzzles, we are deconstructing the psychology of the recruiters and, maybe more importantly, the people who are brilliant enough to answer that call.
We have to understand who takes this bait. Because when you analyze the solvers, the candidates who actually made progress, a very specific pattern emerges.
They weren't who you'd expect.
Not at all. Not high-level government cryptographers. They were something else.
So let's pull up the profile of Subject A. This is from the Rolling Stone investigation. His name is Marcus Wanner.
And at the time of this incident, January 2012, he's just a kid, 15 years old.
Living near Roanoke, Virginia. And the demographics here, they're key to the profile.
Right. Marcus isn't some dark web criminal. He's a homeschooled teenager from a devout Catholic family, a Boy Scout leader about to make Eagle Scout.
He's the definition of a good kid. But there's a tension there, a huge psychological stressor.
His parents. Let's say they were protective.
Protective feels like an understatement. It was a total surveillance environment.
Yeah. I mean, Marcus is a brainiac. He's gifted with computers, solves a Rubik's Cube in 45 seconds, but he is living in a digital cage.
His father was an electrical engineer, so he knew the dangers of the web. They had him on a big brother eye over the shoulder kind of protocol.
Which means what exactly?
Computer use was only in the living room, where the screen was always visible. No private email. He couldn't register on any website without getting permission first.
Imagine having all that raw processing power in your head and being completely unable to use it. That creates pressure.
It creates a stifled genius. And the great irony of that kind of restriction is it often breeds elite circumvention skills. You want to teach a kid to hack. Give him a computer and tell him he can't use it.
For Marcus, that pressure valve just blew on January 7th, 2012. He actually calls it Fuck It Day.
A pivotal moment in the dossier.
Yeah. His parents had just let him have a laptop for school. So he's sitting on his bed, wearing his green Boy Scout cargo shorts.
Apparently the only kind he wore.
And he decides to break the rules. He defies the surveillance. He logs onto 4chan, the science and math board. He's just bored. He's looking for something.
He was looking for a challenge that could actually match his intellect. And that is exactly who Cicada 3301 was hunting for. Not knowledge, but potential. He sees the image, the 3301 signature, and he just decides to step into the dark.
But he wasn't alone. Let's look at Subject B, a user known only as Tech.
Tech is another fascinating profile, also 15. A webmaster, a coder, but his psychological state is described as twitchy, paranoid.
Even years later, he wouldn't give his real name or his university. The writer described him whipping his head around in panic when a plate dropped in a restaurant.
That paranoia probably served him pretty well in this hunt.
I think so. When he first saw the image, his instinct wasn't excitement, it was total skepticism. He was telling his friends that 4chan was the chamber pot of the internet, but like Marcus, he just couldn't resist the intellectual hook.
So you have these kids, bored, sheltered, brilliant, and desperate for an escape. They see the black image. How did they even begin? And this brings us to phase 2, the technical escalation.
The barrier to entry was immediate. If you just looked at the image, you saw absolutely nothing. You had to look through it.
So we're talking about steganography.
Exactly. And let's break that down because it sounds like spy movie jargon, but it's really logical. Digital images are just pixels. Each pixel is defined by code.
Right. Numbers for red, green, and blue.
If you change one number in that code, say a green value from 255 down to 254, the human eye can't see that difference. The image looks identical, but the computer sees it. You can use those tiny invisible changes to hide data inside the picture.
So Marcus and Tech realized the image wasn't a picture, it was a container.
Right, so they open the JPEG file in a text editor, like Notepad. And normally that just gives you miles of garbage characters. But inside that garbage, there was a string of readable text.
The specific phrase, Taborev's Kalevdiv's Caesar.
To most people, that's just a name from history class. But to a mind primed for patterns, it's a key.
They would have recognized it immediately as a reference to the Caesar cipher, ancient military encryption.
You just shift the letters of the alphabet by a certain number. A becomes C, B becomes D, and so on.
But you need the shift number. You can't just guess it.
And this is where the intelligence part of the test really comes in. You use the context. Tiberius was the 4th Roman emperor.
So you shift the characters back by 4 letters, and the gibberish becomes a URL.
And this is the hook setting in. You solve it, you get a reward, a link. You feel smart, you feel like you're in on a secret. You click the link, expecting all the answers.
And this is my favorite part of this whole dossier. They click it, and they get an image of a wooden duck.
The decoy.
Yeah, a wooden duck with the text, "Oops, just decoys this way." It looks like you can't guess how to get the message out.
That is such a critical profiling detail. It tells us 2 things about the architects of this whole thing. 1, they have a sense of humor, a really dark, cynical one. And 2, they are filtering for persistence.
It's a gut check.
Yes.
Yeah.
They wanted to weed out anyone who would solve one puzzle and immediately think they were a genius. They wanted the people who would hit a dead end, get mocked, and just keep digging.
So if the duck offended you, you were out. If you laughed and looked closer, you got to advance.
Right. And the clue was in the phrasing, "Get the message out." It was a reference to a specific steganography tool called outguess.
So now we're graduating from Notepad to specialized forensic software.
Exactly. The tools required from this point on weren't toys. We're talking outguess. We're talking PGP signatures.
Let's unpack PGP for a second. Pretty good privacy. Why was that so important to the Cicada profile?
Think of it like a digital wax seal on a letter. In the chaos of the internet, anyone could post a message and claim to be Cicada. PGP uses complex math to generate a unique digital signature.
So it proves authenticity.
It creates a chain of trust. Cicada used it to sign every single clue. It stopped copycats, it ensured the signal stayed pure, but it also taught the recruits a lesson. Verify everything. Don't trust something just because it looks right. Verify the signature.
This wasn't a scavenger hunt anymore. This was tradecraft.
It was training. That's what this phase was. They were teaching the recruits the tools encryption, anonymity networks like Tor, Steganography. If you didn't know them, you learned fast, or you got left behind.
And as the weeks went on, the rabbit hole went deeper. But then something happened that shifted the profile of the entire operation. It went from digital to physical.
A force multiplier moment.
Yeah. Up until this point, you could argue it was just a very clever person in a basement somewhere. But then the coordinates appeared.
GPS coordinates. And not just for one city. We're talking Warsaw, Paris, Seoul, Seattle, Halewa, Hawaii, New Orleans.
Can you just imagine that scene? It's winter. You've got a solver in Poland standing in the freezing snow, scanning a QR code that's literally taped to a telephone pole.
And at the same time, someone in Australia is doing the exact same thing.
That takes a global organization.
It takes boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Implies resources, coordination, a network that spanned continents. And that terrified people. It thrilled them, but it was terrifying. It meant Cicada 3301 wasn't just code, it was real. They were everywhere.
And this is where the cult of intelligence profile really starts to solidify. When you see that level of coordination, you have to ask, what's the ideology? Who are the architects?
Solvers found a book, or pages of a book, the Liber Primus.
The first book, this was a bit later, right? Or around 2014.
Yes, but it was hinted at all along. It was written entirely in runes, runes that had to be deciphered by the community working together. And this wasn't a technical manual on how to hack. It was a manifesto.
What was it preaching?
It reads like philosophy. It talks about the simulation. It places this supreme value on privacy, anonymity, and the freedom of information. The motto the community adopted, the one Cicada enforced, was trust nothing, verify everything.
It sounds almost religious.
In a way, it is. It's the profile of a benevolent digital cult. They don't fit the profile of cyber terrorists who just want to watch the world burn. They see themselves as guardians.
Guardians of what?
Of privacy. The core belief seems to be that the modern internet has become a prison, a panopticon where everything you do is tracked and monetized and surveilled by governments, by corporations.
And in Marcus's case, by his parents.
Exactly. Cicada 3301 seems to believe that privacy is a fundamental human right, and they were recruiting the world's best jailbreakers.
Which brings us back to Marcus, the kid in the cargo shorts. He stuck with it. He fought through the decoys, the ciphers, the runes. He collaborated with others in private chat rooms. They called it a brood. And eventually, he reached the end.
He did. The funnel narrowed. Thousands started. A handful made it.
So what was at the bottom of the rabbit hole? A job offer from the CIA. $1 million.
No. He got an email, a congratulatory message, and an invitation.
To the Inner Sanctum.
He was given credentials for a dark website. When he logged in, he wasn't alone. There were the others, the survivors of the filter, and they were told they were now part of a collective. The goal was to develop software.
What kind of software?
Software that protects anonymity.
They were building the tools to break the cage.
Precisely. Marcus described a project, I think it was called Cakes, Cicada, Anonymous Key Escrow System. The idea was to build software that could protect whistleblowers, dissidents, anyone who needed to speak truth to power without fear.
So the bad guys in this whole spooky noir story were actually trying to save the internet.
From a certain point of view, yes. But here's the psychological twist. This whole thing creates a God complex for the creators and a deep validation hunger for the solvers. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt seen. He wasn't the weird kid with overprotective parents. He was a chosen one. Elite.
And that kind of validation is a powerful drug. But drugs have a come down, and this dossier has a pretty haunting conclusion.
It does, because as quickly as that window opened, it slammed shut.
By late 2012, Marcus and the others were working on this project. But then, just silence. The architects stopped responding.
Marcus felt abandoned. He kept working on it for a while, but without the guidance of the 3301 leaders, the whole group just splintered. The project stalled out.
And then years passed. The puzzle started again in 2013, then 2014, but they were harder, more esoteric, and the Liber Primus.
Still largely undeciphered.
Yeah.
To this day, there are huge sections of that runic book that no one has managed to crack. The wiki community, the hive mind that formed to solve this, is still active, still trying to translate the pages. But the trail has gone cold.
It's like finding an abandoned temple. The artifacts are there, the writing's on the wall, but the priests are long gone.
And that raises the most chilling reality of this dossier. Cicada 3301 was never caught. No government agency ever raided them. No one was arrested. They didn't disband because they failed.
The theory is, they finished their shopping.
Exactly. They wanted capacity. They wanted the best minds. They found Marcus. They found others we don't even know about, the ones who never talked to Rolling Stone. They extracted the talent they needed, and they just vanished back into the dark.
So the question isn't who were they, the question is where are they now?
And what are they building? I mean, if they recruited a generation's best cryptographers and coders back in 2012, 2013, 2014, that software has been in development for over a decade.
Think about the cybersecurity landscape today. The encryption that protects your bank account, the ransomware that shuts down a hospital, the privacy tools that journalists use in war zones.
Is it written by a kid who was recruited from a 4chan board 10 years ago?
It's a distinct possibility. They're out there, they're coding, and they are silent.
And you just have to remember the motto, trust nothing, verify everything.
Dossier #31 is open and unsolved. The Liber Primus is still out there, waiting for anyone brave enough or bored enough to try and read it. But be careful what you solve for. You might just find it.
The test is likely never truly over.
Stay vigilant.